I am Yoshiki Ano from Tokyo, Japan. Today's session is concerning Deng Xiaoping's modernization of the PLA. Concerning the PLA modernization, Deng Xiaoping got the supreme power after the catastrophic Great Cultural Revolution led by Mao. Under Deng's leadership, the four modernizations consisting of agriculture, industry, science and technology, and national defense were promulgated in 1973. Since 1978, China embarked on a fundamental process of reform and modernization that has resulted in an unprecedented rate of economic development. China has been successful in attracting vast amounts of foreign direct investment. Revamping the military was, however, seen as a long-term strategic problem and put the fourth priority of the four modernization. No dramatic upsurge in the level of Chinese defense spending or effort occurred in the late 1970s and early 1980s. Instead, attention centered on redesigning the armed forces so that they would be capable of absorbing and effectively using more advanced weapons and equipment. In 1975, the CMC, Central Military Committee, concluded that a massive Soviet invasion was more of a myth than reality. With Mao's support and Deng's guidance, the CMC implemented a 3-year plan of force reduction, cutting the overall forces level of the PLA from 6.1 to 4 to 5 million. The army was reduced by 32%, strategic missile force by 27.2%, and the Air Force by 13.4%. Only the Navy increased its number of sailors. In 1983, Deng proposed that the PLA's war strategy be altered from preparation for an early all-out war with the USSR to one of the steady development in a changed international environment. The Soviets were mainly focusing on the European theater and preoccupied by the threat posed to it by hardline US policy. Thus, the PLA enjoyed historic opportunity of development and reform. The PLA was no longer forced to keep a giant army. In July 1975, when Deng Xiaoping surveyed the PLC military, he summarized the problems of the PLA in 5 words: bloating, laxity, conceit, extravagance, and inertia. The PLA did not perform well against the Vietnamese in 1979. Thereafter, first Deng and then his successors, Jiang Zemin and Hu Jintao, continuously sought to shrink the total number of PLA personnel, re-establish and then upgrade the military education system, build a non-commissioned officers corps, gradually create a more secure nuclear deterrent, reduce the dominance of ground units in the force structure and decision-making system, elevate the positions and capabilities of the strategic and missile forces, Navy and Air Force, and so on. Revolutionized the technological level of all services and functions such as logistics, intelligence, command, control, and communications, and increase mobility and joint operation capabilities. The rising of the resources after the Tiananmen incident. The resource is devoted to military modernization rose in the 1990s as China's economy gained strength, as communist regime in Eastern Europe and the Soviet Union collapsed, and as mutual strategic suspicious between Beijing and Washington increased following the June 4, 1989 violence in the PRC, the Tiananmen incident, in which the PLA had played a decisive role. Officially announced military budgets from 1990 largely rose by double digits. Beijing fears that the United States would intervene to protect Taiwan if the PRC used force against the island. However, a lack of response by the PRC would undermine the regime's legitimacy with its own people. Given this dilemma, Beijing's chosen course has been to increase its military strength in hopes of deterring a Taiwan declaration of its independence, and following that, deterring a U.S. intervention. Failing that, deterring a U.S. intervention. Moreover, the 1991 display of U.S. military superiority in the Gulf War, the 1996 dispatch of 2 U.S. carrier groups to the waters of Taiwan, a move that Beijing found it difficult to respond to, and the 1999 Kosovo War also created a rationale for increased military spending. Finally, a major contributor to rising military spending has been the need to keep military pay somewhat competitive with compensation in the civilian sector. Beijing's 2006 Defense White Paper acknowledged the protracted nature of the military modernization task by saying that the goal was building informationized armed forces and being capable of winning informationized wars by the mid-21st century. U.S. Office of the Secretary of Defense describes in annual report to Congress in March 2013 that Beijing announced a 10.7% increase in its annual military budget to $114 billion, continuing more than 2 decades of sustained annual defense spending increases. Analysts of data from 2003 through 2012 indicates China's officially disclosed military budget grew at an average of 9.7% per year in inflation-adjusted terms over the period. China has the fiscal strength and political will to support defense spending growth at comparable levels, despite lowering the economic growth forecast in 2012 to 7% from 8% in 2011. Continued increases will support PLA modernization efforts and facilitate China's move toward a more professional force. Using 2012 prices and exchange rates, the U.S. Department of Defense estimates that China's total actual military-related expenditure for 2012 falls between $135 billion and $215 billion. As long as the strong political power of the PLA will be kept, the trend of the military budget increase will be maintained, even if the economic growth becomes lower. This concludes today's session. Thank you.